just wanted to welcome all the friends and family. It's not easy to be here. It's a bittersweet opportunity to acknowledge a great person, a person who was very special to his family, very special to his community, who was able to do a lot of things, able to overcome a lot of difficulties and challenges in life. But it's also a bittersweet thing because he was a person who overcame many things and was able to do many things. And he was able to see his child, his grandchild, and his great-grandchildren grow in this new, beautiful country. So today we give honors, we give respects. We'll say words of thanks and appreciation to our beloved Joshua Gerschman, Yehoshua ben Yaakov. We start with a selection from the Tehillim, from the Psalms, Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo eksar. Bina isteshach yarbitzeni al mei menuchos yenachaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magli tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elach begeit salmaves lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamoni. Tairach lefanai shulchan neged tzairai. Dishante v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti bebeis Adonai le'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down. Beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul. He leads me on paths of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the view of my torments. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days. As a rabbi for the service, I feel very privileged that I've had a chance to know not only Joshua, not only his late wife Polina, but in particular to know his son Gerald. And to know Gerald is to know his whole family, to know all of his friends. And I saw at first our beloved Joshua, when he was taking care of his wife 13 or 14 years ago at Montefiore, to see the level of devotion that he had to his wife. Every day he was there, not only to make her happy, not only to take care of her, but also to make sure everything was right, to make sure all the nurses were following all the things they were supposed to, because nothing except for the perfect was acceptable. But also what I noticed was that behind Josh was his son. Wherever his father went, his son went. And his son learned in this special mitzvah, the mitzvah of taking care of a parent, of a spouse. And so indeed, I'm very privileged to be here, if only for the fact that I'm following the footsteps of Gerald, the way he took such good care of his father and took care of him so beautifully. And I don't want to put him on the spot, but Mr. Bookatz, one of the funeral directors here, who's worked with Gerald for a long time, he's seen a lot of people who are parents and a lot of people who are children. And he said to me, there's very few people like Gerald. I've seen a lot of people going out of their way for their parents, but Gerald was truly exceptional. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about Joshua and about his life. He was born May 13th, 1928 in Romania, in a town that I won't pronounce correctly, but a town called Zegerița. It was a Yiddish town, a beautiful town before the war, with a Jewish life, with the simplicity of life. The kids went to shul, they went to cheder, they had Shabbos, they had kosher, they had all the things a simple life could have. But the Nazis took all of that away. They occupied it early into the war, and they moved them into a ghetto. Soon the entire town was burnt up and shipped off to a ghetto in Berkowitz-Kumin-Bookatz in nearby Ukraine. It was there that Joshua lived there for 4 years, 4 entire years, from age 14 to 18, he lived in a ghetto. A tiny set of streets where more than 25,000 Jews were smushed into horrible conditions. Literally each room had 20 or 30 people. There was disease, there was hunger, all around. He truly had a tough life at that time, but even before, when he came to be bar mitzvah, already his town was under occupation of the Nazis. And the very shul that he had his bar mitzvah at would be burned and destroyed completely afterwards. He went to the gymnasia, the Roman gymnasia, during the time of the occupation, and then the war came, and then there was no school. Thank goodness for the cheder that he had when he was a kid, because it taught him Yiddish, it taught him how to pray, it taught him a lot of things about the Jewish life. But main thing was the experiences he took from life were how to be strong. The experiences he had from all these horrible situations taught him to take care of your family and to be strong. And that strength, that toughness that he had, the fact that he could be very stubborn at times, was challenging for us. And I'm sure it was challenging for Gerald and people who were taking care of him. But that's what got him through the war. That's what got him through all the hardships. Is just looking straight, not looking to the left or looking to the right, only going forward. After the 4 years in the ghetto, he was liberated by the Russians when they took it over. And there he settled in a part of Ukraine nearby. And shortly he was drafted into the Russian army. And he spent 5 years serving in the Russian army. When he was barely still a kid, he was still so young. He stayed in the Ukraine after the war. Things became a little quieter, but certainly not easy. He had to get used to speaking a new language, entering a Russian high school and speaking Russian. But he was smart. He got through his studies, he learned to speak Russian, he learned this new culture. Then finally, when he was age 25 or so, he was able to marry the love of his life, to marry his beloved Polina. So they married there, and they soon had a child, and Gerald came along in 1955. He was a very smart person, but he was able to stay focused. If he had to make a living in a factory, even if it was very similar stuff from day to day, even if it wasn't the most exciting work, that's what he did. So he did for many decades working as a factory electrician. Life was pretty hard in the Soviet Union. So thank goodness a dream that his whole family had for a long time came to be in 1973. The family came to America round about this month, in the month of December. At first, Joshua wanted to go to Israel because that's where his father was and that's where his sister was. But God would direct them elsewhere, to come to the United States. And the United States was a good place because it had a lot of opportunities for Gerald and for his family. And even though his sister and his father were far away in Israel, he kept up the connection. And he was able to visit there even a couple times. And he was even able to see his father, his dear father, who he loved so much, before he passed away in 1976. When he came to America, he didn't stop working. Despite the language changes and the culture changes, he still kept it up, working day after day, hard factory shifts in a local factory at the Dalton of America company. More than 25 years he worked there in this new company, doing maintenance, helping out. And it was a very good job for him, because one thing we know about him is he enjoyed fixing things. I asked Gerald what his hobbies were, and his hobbies weren't poker and mahjong and golf and, bird watching. His hobbies were things that were practical. And so he spent a lot of his time fixing things and helping to make sure that everything worked correctly. He lived in the Mayflower apartments, and then later came to Menora Park when he was much sicker, earlier this year. He got to see Gerald grow up. He got to see his wife Rosa, and he got to see the child, from their marriage. And then he got to see his future, granddaughter-in-law, and then he got to see his great-grandchildren. And so you can imagine the look of a man who lost his whole family, being able to look to his generation, 1, 2, 3 generations, and that they say that there's no consolation for what the Nazis took away from us, but for the children that we can give. And it may not be correct, but if there's anything that was a consolation for the pain, it was a family that he got a chance to see grow before his eyes. In terms of the Jewish world, as I said before, he grew up with a lot of Yiddishkeit, but he had to deal with one of the biggest problems. Why did God do this to us? Why did God take away all of these things? We were good people. Why did God make this so hard? And I know he struggled with this question very, very much. But he was very loyal to his people. He was very loyal to being Jewish, very loyal to Israel. He always stood up for Israel, always stood up for the Jewish people. No matter how hard it was to be a Jew, he never went away from that identity. And he was very proud to be in America because this country was about freedom and you could be yourself and do what you wanted to do. And he was a very patriotic American citizen later in his life. He got very involved in politics, right? He wasn't just into America. He was into discussing what was good for America. And the phase when I knew him was a phase where he was the mayor of the Mayflower Apartments. So I'm sure people, maybe from here, from the apartments. So to be the mayor, you had to stand and talk to everybody. You had to be on the corner. You had to have the latest information. You had to know when Marx's was closing and Marx was open, what sales they had. You had to know everything from local to international politics, what was going on in Israel, what was going on in America. And I know he enjoyed knowing those things, and he enjoyed helping the people in his building, and he enjoyed disagreeing with you sometimes if you didn't have the same viewpoint that he had on certain political issues. And like I said, he liked to fix things. That was a hobby that he had. But he also had a musical gift. He had a really amazing ear, so that he could hear a song that was played and enjoy the song and keep it in his memory, and then he could come home and he could play it. And I don't know if you guys go way back, but when he was younger, he used to play the piano, he used to play the accordion, and I'm sure that was a nice way to see a side of him that wasn't as serious. It was a side of him that was joyful and a side of him that was happy. So I just want to close with the very same thing, that I said in the beginning, which is that he did many good things, and the thing he did the best was just staying focused, staying straight in the most difficult of times. Taking care of your family first, not worrying about yourself, and that is a special trait that he was able to not only fulfill, but he passed it on to his children. So Gerald, as in the Torah idea, the fifth commandment is a very hard commandment. It takes so much out of us to take care of a parent. And it's a rare commandment because God says, if you keep that commandment, I will give you extended life. Because you have to give up a lot of life to take care of your parents. So I give a blessing to Gerald, and to his whole family, that blessing should be fulfilled through you and your children and your grandchildren, the blessing of long life, for the special mitzvah that you did. And so we pray that Joshua's memory should be for a blessing, and all the hard life that he had and all the tough times should be behind him, and he should be able to have peace and joy and be able to look down with nachas upon his children. So speaking of nachas, one of the things that gave him nachas was his grandson, who is going to say for us a few words.
Thanks everybody for coming, especially during these times. Not going to say a whole lot, but my grandpa definitely just had a lot of effect on who I am as a person. And just like the rabbi said, he kind of endured a lot. And the childhood lessons I remember is if something goes wrong, or I remember my bike breaking, and a lot of people can take that as a moment of everything is bad, I can get angry. He taught me to take whatever tools I had and just fix it and keep going. And I still believe in that today. And I think that instead of getting mad, or instead of thinking the world's against you, a lot of times you could feel that way, you just endure and you use what tools you have to keep going. And I definitely learned that from him. He was a man of few words, but like the rabbi said, when he did say something, it was very effective, had a lot of effect on my wife, what he said to her. He said that she makes me smile, which is true, and she loves him for that. But he's definitely someone I've always looked up to, and he taught me a lot about just how to keep going in life. So, yeah, that's all I'll say. Thank you again for coming out.
Thank you so much. So following today's services, we are going to go in procession to the Mount Olive Cemetery, which is where the burial is going to be. Joshua will be buried right next to his wife of blessed memory. At this moment, if you could please rise, we're going to stand up for the memorial prayer. And then following the memorial prayer, we'll remain standing as we have the pallbearers come forward, and then we escort the casket from the chapel. El Malei Rachamim, Sheikhein Bamrumim, Hamsei Menucha Nechoinal Kanfei Hashchina, Bemalos Kedoshim, Utaharim, Gezarakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas, Yehoshua ben Yaakov, Shahalach Leolemo, Lavor shanachtu mispalim bahar haskras nishmaso. Began Eden tehet menuchaso. Lechein bal harachamim. Yastirechu besisa kanafav li'olamim. Beyitzor b'tzor achayim es nishmaso. Adonai hu nachlaso. Beyanuach al mishkavo b'shalom. Benomar Amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the soul of our most beloved Joshua Gerschman, who has gone into his world and for whom we pray. May his resting place be in the Garden of Eden, and may the Master of Mercy shelter him in the shelter of his wings for all eternity, and may he bind his soul in the bonds of life. God is his heritage, and may he repose in peace on his resting place. And let us say together, Amen. So we're going to stay standing. We're going to grab our coats, and anyone who's able to be a pallbearer, if they could please come forward. We're going to escort the casket first. Then the family is going to follow in behind the casket, and then the folks in the audience will follow in behind the family.
Interment will be at Mount Olive Cemetery. If you're going to that service, please return to your cars, put on your headlights and your flashers. Thank you.